Good morning again. We will start in approximately 2 minutes. Good morning to everyone. Very special Sitaram, Assalamu Alaikum, Om Shanti, and good morning. If any of the reverential greetings have been missed out for persons here in the audience, I humbly apologize, but best wishes on myself to each and every one of you. And thank you very much for spending your Saturday morning having breakfast, as well as an engaging discussion with us here at the NCIC Heritage Centre. I am your humble servant as moderator, Dr. Vedavid Akash Manik. As we begin this morning, you may wonder, why is the NCIC hosting a breakfast seminar on the topic that we are here for, which is family challenges and East Indian perspective? Because when we think about culture, what are the first things that come to our minds? We probably think food, as we just had an excellent breakfast this morning. Definitely one of the most favorite parts of culture. You may think music, you may think dance, you may think art, you may think so many different things, our clothing even. But all of these things are just but the surface of what culture is. What culture is really? It is a perspective of the world, a viewpoint of the world. It is how we interact with it. It is how we respond to challenges, both ancient as well as present. The anthropologists would tell us that millennia ago, men decided that we will no longer live as isolated families and to come together for a better chance of survival and form civilizations. That's how the most ancient cities and civilizations first began, when people decided that we will share common space, share common resources, and share common values. But the core of that rests with the family. The family is like the atom that builds up the society. In preparing for this morning, our esteemed Dr. Gupta, who unfortunately is not with us this morning, would have shared some thoughts with me. And from his thoughts, it is very clear that what matters to each and every one of us is family. It is our bastion. It is our sanctuary. It's our refuge when the world gets tough. We know we have family. All of our successes and all of our challenges are inextricably linked to this word, family. And we just have to look through our newspapers today that we would see that in our multicultural, multi-ethnic society, our young society that continues to grow in a very vast and rapidly changing world, the genesis of the challenges likely initiate at the home level. Be it crime, be it school violence, be it inequality, be it poverty, the root is the values and the principles that are present in the home. This morning, we are here to share East Indian perspectives on the family challenges in the home. We will be looking at challenges as they pertain to gender violence, challenges faced by our elderly, challenges faced by our children, and challenges and opportunities to enhance the lives of persons living with disabilities. We look forward to a very engaging and enlightening discussion. The next task I have at hand is to introduce someone to you who needs absolutely no introduction, but here I am being redundant. This is none other than the President of the National Council for Indian Culture, Mr. Dilrup Timalji. Mr. Timal is a civil engineer with over 25 years of experience in the public service. And for as long as I can remember, and I'm sure as long as most people would have known him, he has been a servant of society. Be it through the Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, where he is the president of that organization, or be it now through the NCIC as the president of the NCIC, or be it in the highest court of our land as an independent senator on his second term, Mr. Timal lives a life that is characterized by service to society. He is an inspiration to a younger person like myself and persons seated at this table here as well, who are from my age bracket as well. So the introduction was not necessary, but here we are. And I introduce this morning your president of the NCIC, Mr. Dilrup Timalji.
Namaskar and a very pleasant morning to everyone. Our moderator of today's event, Dr. Vedavid Manik. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. And first of all, on behalf of the NCIC Heritage Centre, I'd like to welcome everybody to this breakfast seminar and to extend our appreciation for your presence here and hopefully your very active engagement in the interactive sessions that we expect would follow. Why have we chosen this topic for this breakfast seminar? The family has been one of the most important contributions of Indian civilization to the world. And I've deliberately chosen the term Indian civilization because in so doing, it puts it in a time frame, a perspective of time. So we're talking about thousands and thousands of years that this institution of family has been the building block of not society only, but of an entire civilization. And it has served the civilization exceedingly well. In fact, the role of family is still of vital importance to the future of not only our communities, but our entire nation and the entire world. And it's an institution that has been, has faced tremendous challenges over the many years. And particularly now so, because, anyhow you look at it, from a global perspective, the family is severely challenged. From the perspective of the individuals constituting the family, there are also many challenges. And the place of the family in the society and in the nation itself, the importance of it at times, we wonder what importance is being given to it. So we felt that this topic is of vital importance because to allow perspectives, new perspectives or different perspectives to come to the fore, or if they are not new or different, to clearly identify the perspectives that has shaped this institution and factors that would have to be identified that would continue to shape the direction of this institution. And, you know, there are many gaps because when we look at all of the conversations about what is foremost in Trinidad and Tobago as one of our major problems, that of crime, you will realize that all of the solutions being put forward are the school violence. We're talking about intervention, police intervention, the intervention by social workers, all sorts of interventions. And in terms of the wider crime and serious crimes, many interventions are being proposed, but all from a legal and a law point of view, from an enforcement point of view. And we need more legislation, we need a better judicial system, a more efficient system to deal with it and all of those things. But how often have we heard about the family and the role of the family? Because the best and surest way, preventative measure for crime are good families. If we have good families, crime is going to be reduced tremendously in this country. But the focus, as I said, has been just on that, you know, the prevention and the law and the enforcement and the police and all of these things. But in terms of family reform, family development, all of these things and the role that it can play and how we can get it into the mainstream, you know, those things are not being, in my opinion, is not being focused on as much as it should. You know, we have seen the strength of the Indian family has been the extended family, coming back from when our forefathers came to Trinidad. And we have seen the deterioration of, or the annihilation of, the extended family due to certain circumstances, you know. We have gone from extended family that was the support, not only moral support, but economic support for the entire extended family. They found their economic support within the extended family structure. That is no longer there. We have to go to the banks. We have to go to the finance institutions for that support. That has been removed with the deterioration of the extended family. Now, I'm not saying we have to bring back the extended family because times are changing, but what it is there to replace it is something that maybe would come out in some of the discussions here. And then we have the nuclear family, where we just came down to 2 parents, and now even that is being challenged. We now have single-parent family, and now we have 0-parent families, and we have virtual families. So it's a complex situation, but if we bring our wisdom to bear on the situation, what has worked, what could work, and identify clear pathways moving forward, I think our exercise here this morning will be worthwhile. Now, one last thing is that this is not, we don't intend this, our best intentions are not to have this as a one-off event. What we are hoping is that coming out of this discussion here today, that we can chart a way forward, we can identify areas that we can work on, possibly through further seminars or further workshops. And I was talking to one of the participants, he was talking to me actually before, and he was mentioning that we need to really engage the youth in these exercises because they are the ones who are going to form the families of the future, right? They are the ones who are going to mentor the children of the future. And so all of these things we intend to take it forward throughout the coming year, because we have recognized the importance of family. We want to do something about it. And in fact, the theme for this year, Diwali Nagar 2024, is Grihastha Ashram, the life of the householder. And even in that itself, it causes us to think, because householder, the life of a householder, which is an ancient tradition coming through, it is couched as an ashram. An ashram is there for growth and development, the development of members within that ashram, and in addition is the role that that ashram could play in society, in building society. So the view of the householder, the family is not just, the view of the householder is not just family, but is the role of the householder in community and in nation as well. And these are dimensions that we need to tune up, we need to dig down deep into, and we need to bring out, what is there so that we can apply it to our present day situation and chart a way forward. So the Grihastha Ashram is our theme for Diwali Nagar 2024. And I must say that this breakfast seminar is the start of it. It's a build-up to that theme. And hopefully, prior to Diwali Nagar, and during Diwali Nagar and post-Diwali Nagar, the NCIC through its Heritage Centre will be able to fully explore within our limited resources, and by partnering and networking with individuals and other organizations, what we can do about challenges facing the family. So I thank you. We look forward to an interesting session.
Thank you very much. So Diwali Nagar 2024 has begun. We go into our presentations this morning, and our first presenter really comes from that background of being the backbone of family itself. Mrs. Kamala Dharmawati Tiwari is currently the president of the Hindu Women's Organization. She is a retired secondary school teacher of foreign languages, has a postgraduate diploma in human resources management from the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business, where she retired early and subsequently took up employment at the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business as a senior associate. There she managed multiple projects both nationally and regionally for the organization. With the awareness of the power of religion in governing the affairs of the global system, Mrs. Tiwari accepted the offer to join the World Conference of Religions for Peace as a member of the coordinating committee of the Women of the Faith Network for Latin America. This was during her first term as president of the Hindu Women's Organization from 2003 to 2007. And here she continues to serve as the current president as well. And this morning will give us perspectives on gender violence and the home, a family perspective and East Indian perspective. Please welcome Mrs. Kamala Dharmawati Tiwari.
If you hear my voice. Sitaram, everybody, and good morning. It really is a pleasure for me to be here because of the efforts that the NCIC is making on all of our behalf. It has done so in the past, and it continues with the immense strength and energy that our current president is putting forward to make sure that our voices, our thoughts, our opinions get to the point where the national community is listening to us. Our focus on, my fellow panelists, Mr. Moderator, our focus on GBV, on gender-based violence against women, is not to imply that we women are never violent against men, because it happens. But statistics show a disproportionate number of women are affected by this scourge. According to the Crime and Analysis branch of the TTPS, there was an increase of 42% in the number of domestic violence cases reported over the period 2021 to 2023. This year alone, up to September 1st, 968 cases were reported. Please pay attention to the figures, it's important. These reports were made by women and girls, particularly those aged 15 to 35, which expose the youthful nature of this problem, the negative impact on families, especially children, which warns us that it is deeply ingrained in the culture of Trinidad and Tobago. The children are more likely to have anger, anxiety, and other behavioral issues which can manifest in various ways in adulthood. In a way, young women as victims of gender violence makes us aware that a cycle persists. But it also warns us that the cycle can continue indefinitely if we do nothing to halt and reverse it. According to 2021 data from the WHO, the World Health Organization, one woman is killed every 11 minutes by her partner globally. One every 11 minutes. This should startle us as well as trouble us. GBV undermines the health, dignity, security of its victims. With victimhood, autonomy is lost, yet it remains draped in a culture of silence. It is not something that people like to talk openly about. In our landscape in Trinidad and Tobago, we can look at the latest statistics from the Coalition Against Domestic Violence from the period July 1st, 2022 to May 31st, 2023. To have a good picture of where we are at in terms of sexual offenses and murders of women, here are what these statistics reveal. Homicide, 23, more than half are women. Sexual abuse, 143. Assault by beating, 1,102. Threats, 711. Wounding, 78. Murders, 15 females to 8 males. Twice as many women are killed. On Thursday, December 23, 2023, there was a report in the Trinidad Guardian about the Rape Crisis Society receiving a €50,000 boost. This is an NGO that provides support and healing to survivors of rape, child sexual abuse, incest, and domestic violence, while actively lobbying and advocating for the rights of the abused. This will certainly make a difference to women victims here in our country. Currently in France, there are protests aimed at getting President Macron to change his position and endorse a law proposed by the EU, the European Union, which would define rape as sex without consent. In the EU bloc's 27 countries. Many other European countries' lawmakers want the definition of non-consensual sex to be adopted. This gives us some idea not only of the thinking on this matter in Europe, but the political currents at work and how individual countries in Europe are affected by what is happening in countries around them. The Rape Crisis Society of Trinidad and Tobago currently has a waiting list of over 150 women and girls after it reported a marked increase during the COVID-19 lockdown. So COVID lockdown did have negative consequences, leading to a backlog of victims to be attended to. This begs the question, what have these victims have been doing in the meantime? How have they been coping? How have their families been faring while they wait on attention from this group? Hopefully, this EU donation will allow them to provide mental health support and outreach that directly impacts women, girls, and communities by accelerating responses and addressing the backlog. What are some of the main causes driving this behavior? History of family violence, sexual abuse as a child, non-recognition of the harmful effects of alcohol and drugs on families and communities, conflict and dissatisfaction in relationships. Research has shown that children who witness violence in the home have twice the rate of psychiatric disorders. Male dominance in the family. We are taught patriarchal and sexist cultural norms, reinforced by message that make it seem natural and acceptable for men to have more power than women, leading to the belief that men have a right to control and harm women and girls. Poverty. This can be a vicious cycle. If it persists into generations, some families have escaped it, but the stress and instability it causes cannot be underestimated. What part do our religion and tradition play in this sad and distressing kahani? I will focus on just three. Ahimsa, the principle by which Gandhiji lived. If we should not kill an animal, then certainly not a human being. This is the principle by which he fought and ousted his colonial masters. We would do well to apply this to the home and to other human beings. Should the wife be seen as the Lakshmi of the home, then why should some of our men folk behave like Ravan? Our debt we cannot repay. Our debt to our parents we cannot repay. Therefore, elderly abuse for pension money and property should not be part of our way of life. The concept of an unrepairable debt should also guide us to understand how we should behave in bringing up our children and how husband and wife should engage each other. These seem like basic tenets, but with lots of illustration and examples in our scriptures, and they seem easy enough to follow, but what we preach and what we practice are two different things. We might not take the time to teach or guide our children with love, kindness, and gentleness. We might have quarrels in front of the children. For whatever reason, harsh words are directed at the female on a constant basis, or violence is perpetrated on the woman. These bad examples can have a negative effect on the peace and stability of our family. We are humans, and we slip, and we make mistakes, but we can keep undesirable behavior to a minimum by showing restraint, self-discipline, and mutual respect. GBV is one of the most prevalent human rights violations in the world. It is worse than the pandemic, which has come and gone, but GBV has had a long stint and doesn't look like it's about to disappear anytime soon unless we raise our voices loud and clear in holding all responsible to account and to put in structures and systems in place to address this issue that is so devastating to us all. A simple act like asking parliamentarians to pound their desks for a minute to raise awareness of this issue might draw some attention, at least for one day, but it may well resonate and become a reference point. So for each murder, this act can be repeated. Simple, easy, and within our reach to do. Globally, 1 in 3 women will experience physical or sexual abuse in her lifetime. 2 out of 5, 40% in the Caribbean, are sexually abused. It undermines the health, dignity, and security, yet it remains draped in a culture of silence. According to 2021 data from the WHO, 1 woman is killed every 11 minutes by her partner globally. I know I have said this before, but all of us should take GBV, violence against women, seriously. It is rooted in power, in patriarchy, in gender equality, and like habits of mind and just plain macho behavior as part of the learned and or imitated culture. What are some of the challenges faced in dealing with this issue? Underreporting, because victims are afraid of reprisals. Statistics might be 2 to 3 times as high as reported. Fear and insecurity for themselves and their families. Some see it as private, personal. The process to get a resolution or assistance can be very lengthy and harrowing. Recounting the experience traumatizes victims over and over. Perpetrators manipulate victims. Victims believe that the problem will not be solved by reporting and therefore do not seek help. Some actions that can be taken to prevent the number of victims from growing, mainly unsocialize our sons by unpacking responsibilities, make them equal partners in the household, nurture them to be more respectful and collaborative with their sisters and other girls. Crucially, engage men and boys in the work of transforming patriarchal masculinities for gender justice. This can be done by respectful and nurturing exchange of views. Work with groups like Carryman, Single Fathers Association, the initiatives by the International Day for Men, started by Dr. Jerome Tuluksing, so we can promote ideas of responsible and caring manhood and fatherhood. Introduce the health and family life education curriculum into secondary schools, which should change the mindset and behavior of our youth. But the major challenge with this initiative is that many parents who hear the word sex in sex education immediately think that their children will be taught sex, as if the children don't know it already, and not be educated about sex and its consequences. So parents need help too in understanding that this is to help them and their children. Our education system must play a key role in the holistic development of the child, especially as so many homes are failing. Steps must be taken where problems are detected to engage parents and to strengthen home culture and home environment, as stated by Senator Timmel. NGOs can engage in the Spotlight Initiative, an EU-funded program which has wide reach across the judiciary, the police service, and civil society groups, facilitating capacity building and enabling institutional strengthening. Out of this endeavor, we await the National Strategic Plan on GBV and Sexual Violence 2023 to 2027, which has already been accepted by Cabinet. Its goal is to eliminate gender-based violence in Trinidad and Tobago. Little initiatives by individuals can add up to a bigger collective impact. We can all raise our voices somewhere, somehow, sometime, and add voice, value, and strength to make a difference. As we observe these 16 days of activism from November 25th to December 10th, let us all try in some measure to heed the United Nations designated day, November 25th, to find some means of alleviating this plight that we are facing. The HWO, the Hindu Women's Organization, contribution to this period of time is that on Wednesday we're recording 5 clips on family violence, which will be aired on IETV for weeks after to point out what the different segments of abuse are, who they're aimed at, and hopefully produce solutions. But they're only 1-minute clips, so there's not very much we could do in that time, except to bring to the public's attention these are the problems that exist. One more thing. In talking about violence against women, we must note that there is violence against men, and that is on the increase, so we need to start looking at that. And I thank you for your attention, and I thank you to the NCIC for inviting me to. It's 15 minutes you give me, boy, and I wrapping up. I don't understand, but I have left out what I don't see as necessary. Thank you all very much, folks.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Tuarichi. A few years ago, actually it's many, but I prefer say a few. A few years ago, I stood in the General Assembly of Hillview College as a young teenager. And I listened to a gentleman who gave a sermon on the parable of the planter and the seed, and the importance of there being good soil for the seed. I heard that sermon more than once from the same gentleman at Hillview College throughout my years, so I know it's one of his favorite messages. And I carry that message with me every day, even to today. Dr. Reverend Daniel Tilak Singh has dedicated himself to the service of God and country and has served in many capacities. He has been a Presbyterian minister for more than 56 years, and he is now in semi-retirement, because for people, men and women of service, there is no such thing as full retirement. During his years of service at the Presbyterian Church, he has ministered over 48 congregations throughout the length and breadth of this country. Reverend Tilak Singh has been an independent senator for 2 consecutive terms for a period of 10 years. And I must say, because sometimes I had nothing else to do, I would have tuned into the Parliament channel, and some of his contributions are noteworthy and memorable indeed. He's a public figure, and the media often seeks his views on public matters, and he continues to serve this country, this as well as the church in several ways, just as he's providing service to each and every one of us this morning. This morning he will be sharing perspectives on the issue of the challenges faced by the elderly, family perspectives and East Indian perspective. I invite the Reverend Dr. Daniel Tilak Singh.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, Senator Timal, President of NCIC, and of course my dear friend Mr. Gupta, who is not here, and all the other coordinators of this seminar. Thank you very much, fellow presenters, ladies and gentlemen. I am most delighted to be with you today, and thanks for your most gracious welcome. We are considering challenges, and Dr. Gupta is very much aware that I am in the very prestigious 80 Club. And among the senior citizens, 2 Sundays ago, I was 82, and he knows that. So he said, listen, the best topic for you is challenges faced by the elderly. So here am I. This was a very simple task for me, very easy indeed. I didn't have to go to any library. As you heard, our moderator talked about myself serving in 40 districts and also being aware of all the other districts in Trinidad and Tobago. So I didn't have to go to the library. I know the elderly for all these years, from Erin Road to Tacarigua to Woodbrook, you name it, back to Plumita and Plum Road. I know the elderly in several families, and our church, the Presbyterian Church, the majority of the congregation is East Indian, of course, right? Part of our history. I didn't create that. So I have worked with Indian family. I have worked with the elderly. I lived among them. I am familiar with their problems. I laughed with them, and I cried with the elderly, and this is my textbook for today. This is where I got my information that I will share with you. One of the things that I would say, moderator, is that although we're talking about focusing on the Indian family, let me tell you something about the elderly. Almost all the ethnic groups in Trinidad and Tobago share some of these concerns. So do not think that when in our study of problems faced by old people, the elderly or senior citizens, don't think this is an Indian phenomenon. This thing runs right across. I spoke to a good friend of mine in Washington in the United States a few evenings ago. I said, tell me about old people up there. And I listened to him as it's the same thing happening down here. I know about the Afro families. They have similar problems. So let me get down to this, so you won't have to wave that paper for me. One of the first challenges, and I know this, I didn't experience this as yet, moderator. I don't want to be in this bunch. But loneliness is a very real thing. I'm going to use the word old people, the elderly. I'm going to talk about senior citizens, whatever, interchangeably. Loneliness is very real. Not only for the old people in the Indian family, but right across the board in any of the ethnic groups. In the United States, boy, the Caucasian type of old people, very lonely and sad. Down here, whether it be far in Mayaro or out in Westmoreland, old people seems to be lonely. That's one of the problems. It's a very, very real problem. Why? Senator, you spoke about the extended family, the nuclear family. 50 years ago, there was this joint family. I lived in such a family, sir. Here was my grandmother. My father, mother, and the few children lived in the same house. Our uncle lived there with his wife. Everybody lived together. That has changed. 50 years ago, 60 years ago, that has changed. Right? The young people get married, and the phenomenon today is that they leave home and they go on their own. We even encourage them to go on their own, but in any case, they leave in. And you know what happens to the old family house? The old family house is inhabited only by the elderly, the old person, mother, father, no great-grand or grand, whoever he is, but or she. We stay there. And that aloneness, I look at the dictionary to find if the word aloneness is there, and you know it's not there. I'm going to use it because I know what it means. That sense of being alone is real. I will never forget this, but it didn't only happen with one family. I remember an old lady sitting down at home, visiting her and chatting with her, old member of the church, can't drive and so on. And she said, Rev, you know, my children, they live right here in Trinidad. I love them all. I want them to prosper. I don't want their money. She says, you know, if only they will pick up their phone and call me now and then, I will be happy. I don't only want them to come for my birthday or come for Diwali or Eid or Christmas. I wish my son will come and spend a minute with me. You know, that is a crisis right there. The crisis of loneliness is so very, very real. I wish them well. Now, I'm glad we have some young people here, you know. If your father or your mother or your parents, especially, let's stay with father and mother, if they're alive, don't fool around and tell yourself how you're busy, you will go next week, and next week never comes. All of you young people, we don't want anything from, I'm talking to young people who are here. We don't want anything from you. We just want to know that you're there. We want you to continue loving us as when we loved you earlier on in your life. That's all. And I somehow or the other, something is happening to the young mind today. What is happening to young people, sons and daughters who have lost that sense of caring and love and compassion? Is the young generation gone mad? Whether it be in the Indian family or the Afro family or the Caucasian family? One time we lived nice, not again. We are so selfish, and I think materialism is driving that attitude of our sons and daughters who seem to forget us. And they fool us by want to come for our birthday to take us out. We don't want to go to no brunch and lunch and all this kind of thing. Don't fool us with that. Between birthdays, we want to hear from you. We don't want no gifts from you. We just want to know that love relationship that we had when you were children and teenagers at home, that still exists. Another problem of the elderly that I know for sure is, in addition to living alone, you see the thing I call aging diseases. That is very real for we old people, you know, for us old people. Very, very real. Let me tell you something. My old friend tells me, in fact, Brother Harry is here. I think I told him this already on the phone. When we old people go by the gas station with the car to put air in the tire, nobody helping you by the gas station. You have to go down low to put air in the tire. You know, we old people, we going down there because we have to put air in the tire. It's a real problem to get up, you know. I hope you young people never have that problem. But aging is a real thing for us. And I have learned of something on the TV, on the YouTube the other day called peripheral neuropathy. Why is it that we old people, you see how I started off? Well, I'm in the 80 club. I'm old side, like I have friends here, you know. Nobody has 80 inside. You all have done very well. You all are young. Let me tell you something. You see this business, I do not understand. I spoke to, you are medical doctors here too. Doc, I don't understand how come. The first problem I have is I start limping. We're losing our balance. These legs seem to be more important than any other part of the body. You can't walk. No, for now. Old lady was telling me the other day, she said, listen, I just stood up there doing something in the temple, and suddenly I lost power in my legs as if I want to fall down. Let me tell you something. I call them the aging diseases. Those aging diseases create so much fear in us, and it is very real. The leg weaknesses, I tell you, it is so common. But don't talk about levels, what I call levels of dementia, all kinds of dementia. I hear they call it senior moments now. Let me tell you, young people, don't worry with us, eh? If we forget the key or forget where we put something, listen, you're forgetting even more. I tell you something, don't worry calling us, say we having our senior moments and we forget this and we forget that. Young people seem to, I don't know what they forget, they might even forget their names. When the young child comes from school, did you do your homework? I forget. And they're just using that as an excuse. It seems as though that might become a reality, and I'm so sad about that. I'm frightened too. They have public health services when it comes to health. The public health services in this country is not compassionate when it comes to young people. You go in the clinic and you see a set of old people, mostly poor, those who belong to the lower classes. You see them in the clinic, poor thing, they get up 5 o'clock in the morning, somebody drop them their grandchild, and they sit down in the health center for hours and hours, whole half day. And the next appointment they have is maybe 3-4 months ago. Well, who cares? Who cares? About these community residences for old people, you say they kind of, they're lonely, it's dangerous to be at home. Let me tell you something. I have seen a lot of old people. Their children are living all around. Some are overseas. Old people have been saying, and they know it's dangerous to stay at home alone, I would like to die here in my house. You can't put me in no home. We old people have a strange style and way of living, eh? Sometimes we look for our own trouble, but that's how we are brought up. Yes, we ain't going to know old people's homes, senior citizens' home, community residences, and so on. I have a feeling, and my friend in Canada told me this, that is a way of life up there for old people. And if we are resenting that, we might as well prepare for it when we reach a certain age and everybody leave us and we're alone in this mansion. The time has come when we may have to just tell ourselves we have to pack up and go to our community residence, where you have another society, where you have friendship and so on. I don't know how I'm going to sell that idea to my old friends who say, I want to live here, I grew up here, this is my house, this is my land, I'll die here. I don't know how to tell them to change. This is the latest, and there are many I know whose cases are not in the press. Last week you read about the elderly couple, moderator, the elderly couple somewhere in South, a lady and her daughter who is challenged, physically challenged. They lived alone, burglarized, many people, the fellas came with guns and so on. They're helpless. An old lady and her daughter who is sick, autistic or something like that. They were beaten and they were robbed and it wasn't the first time and so on. This society is a crazy, selfish, greedy, heartless society, Trinidad and Tobago. And by the way, she's only one. And her children, 1 or 2 children live abroad. They say, Mommy, listen, just leave everything and come. But maybe she's the kind who say, me, I go in America, I belong to Trinidad, I want to die right here. But we don't respect that. We do not respect that. All these bandits all over the place. Listen, the elderly really have a problem. They are easy targets for the criminally minded. They are targets for this crime and violence that is real in this country. And members of parliament, Chandra, when we were there, we didn't do much. This problem is bigger than the present set of parliamentarians. You think that the seminar they're having and the consultation of crime is a runaway horse in this country. They could have any, I am surprised that they didn't go and ask for, you know, they like to have consultants and advisors from overseas. A certain important official from this country went to Canada recently and asked for help for crime. I said, what madness is this? This is our society, this is our crime, we're responsible for this, and you want the Canadians and the Americans and the United Nations to come and help us. That is who we are. We cannot defend 1 or 2 old people in Trinidad and Tobago. You want to ask other people to help. The next point, how much time I have again? 1 minute. Why? I want 2 minutes, because I really want to talk about the elderly who are victims of exploitation. I need 2 minutes again. Victims of exploitation and cruelty. Some children, go and tell the young people out there, sons and daughters, that we take advantage of the old people in their helplessness in financial matters because they have their little stroke and so on, and they can't go to the bank, they make us signatories, and we use their funds for ourselves, man. This is happening. I just want to, I want to raise this. We are on to lawyers here. Senator, you see this business about life interest? You have your property, a little piece of land, maybe 5,000 square feet, maybe more. You're living in it, you bought that, you inherited from somebody, and here this one. You realize that what? We are 80 and 82 and maybe 70s now. You want to make a little will because you want to give it to somebody. But you have life interest. I have a problem with this piece of the law that has to do with life interest. That is not cast in stone because I know of sons and daughters who says, good, you're giving me this property, right. You're giving me the house, the land, and the piece in the back, and so on, and you will have life interest. As long as you're alive, you have interest here. Do you know as soon as the paper, I am not making this up. Do you know as soon as the papers are signed about life interest, they're already making their own son and daughter-in-law and grandchildren? And let me tell you something. They make life miserable for that person. They have life interest and they give them hell staying there. Like if they kill them while they're alive. But they have life interest. Here it is. Something has to be done with our law. It is not cast in stone. And old people who have life interest in their own property, who have been disadvantaged and cheated by their sons and daughters, something has to be done with that law. All right, I'm closing now. I have to close. That life interest business, I have a problem with it. I know of sons and daughters who put out their own parents. And if their parents insist on staying there, they're in living hell in their own place by their own son and daughter-in-law, daughter and son-in-law, and vice versa. All right, so I want to close because I've been reading about, I have to tell my friend Dr. Tiwari, we were chatting the other day. I said, tell me what to read. He said, well, go and read some of them modern poets. And he told me, go and read a fellow named W.B., William Butler Yeats. He didn't tell me which book to read, so I'm just looking at Yeats. Yeats wrote a poem, right? He was about age 63, going on 64, so he would consider himself old, one of these modern poets. And he wrote a poem entitled Sailing to Byzantium. I have to tell Bo I saw it. He speaks as an elderly person, an old man, right? And he referred to the kind of decay in society. But this is what I'm looking at too. Something is happening in Trinidad society. We are changing. And for the old people, we find it very difficult to survive here because of all these pressures. And he wished for another place. He said, Lord, I wish to go to that place, that city of peace and wisdom called Byzantium. And he spoke about the old man, you know, about his own self. He said the flesh is an old adage, and that the old person is but a tattered coat upon a stick, like a scarecrow. The old person who has lived so long is like a tattered coat upon a stick. But that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in this thought. And he says, you know, as an old man, spoken about his society in Ireland, he said, this is no country for old men. I'll read it again. How I would like to put it this morning. Trinidad and Tobago is no country. We are fast becoming a place that we are no country for old men and women. That's the kind of society that we are developing. God bless you.
It is indeed very criminal that the committee who told me that I had to be timekeeper as well this morning gave me this duty. Because I said to them, 15 minutes is not going to be enough for what has to be said. Rarity Luxing, as a health professional in the public sector and as a health professional with an interest in working with the elderly, everything you have said resonated with me and is very correct. But we move now from one age to the other side of the spectrum, and we speak about the challenges faced by our children, the persons of whom we have just borrowed this society and who we owe this society to. Dr. Prithviraj Bahadur Singh completed his MBBS program at the University of the West Indies and then pursued specialist training in community pediatrics in the United Kingdom. He's a fellow of the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health and is currently a consultant community pediatrician at the Southwest Regional Health Authority and a lecturer in child health at the University of the West Indies. He has specialist children, particularly in child protection and child development. He is the author of the book, For the Love of a Pan, a novel about a boy with autism in our local setting, and Poems of Peace, which is a collection of inspirational poems and has been as a published series with Hinduism Today and Tapuvan Prasad. He conducts weekly Vedanta study classes at the Chinmaya Ashram and teaches beginner Sanskrit. He coordinates the annual Shiva Ganga Yatra at the Chinmaya Mission, Trinidad and Tobago. He is a sevak to society. I give you Dr. Prithviraj Bahadur Singh.
This is touchscreen. Sitaram to everyone. So my topic today, we're going to speak about challenges facing children. We had two wonderful presentations, one looking at gender-based violence, and other the issues facing women also face children in the society also. And a powerful talk by Reverend Tiluxing referencing challenges faced by the elderly. So from a whole society approach, we have young people, teenagers, adults, elderly, and a lot of the factors overlap. So I'll just present some WHO figures and stuff, and then I'll take a sort of scriptural reference to the topic. What I did was look at some common stories that we know in our tradition and to illustrate the challenges faced by children. So this is a talk, I teach medical students, so this is a question I put to them when I start teaching the topic of child protection. Is there a difference between child protection and child abuse? So child abuse means it already happened. The child's been abused, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, emotional abuse. Child protection takes a preventative perspective in terms of recognizing children at risk and being able to put in measures that will support families where children are at risk. So for example, you have a 18-year-old mom who has a first child, there's no father in the picture, she lives on her own, she's frustrated, she probably has some postpartum depression, all these things. How does she manage in raising this child? There's a situation risk. The child may not have been abused, but there's risk in the situation. So recognition of risk and putting in supports in a proactive manner is child protection. So it's a perspective. So we need to have a perspective of child protection and protecting children in the family. So old biblical adage, spare the rod, spoil the child. So my question, it's a question I ask the students also. I'll ask the audience. Is it legal or is it illegal to hit or smack children in Trinidad and Tobago? So all those who say it is legal, put up a hand. All those who say it is illegal to hit or smack children, put up a hand. I guess it rests on the fence. So the panacea of all ills in the family is to put licks on the child. Everybody get licks. So one time the neighbor beat you, you're doing your homework, everybody get licks, So is it the best method, corporal punishment, in terms of disciplining children? Should we spare the rod or spoil the child? But there are many, many ways to discipline children without having to use physical punishment. And there's a thin line between using physical punishment and abuse. It is actually legal. The law does not prevent using physical force to discipline a child, right? But from a parenting skills perspective, there are many, many ways to discipline children without having to use physical force. And that's an important issue with parenting skills and being able to have other ways to discipline children without having to hit children. So it isn't illegal, but a parent who had a bad day in work, come home angry and frustrated, and a child threw down juice on the table and they put licks on the child, that is abusive. That is not discipline, right? So having many different ways to discipline children is important in parenting skills. So some WHO facts. Nearly 3 in 4 children worldwide, aged 2 to 4, regularly suffer physical punishment, psychological violence at the hands of parents and caregivers. Most abuse happens within the home and from persons known to the child, right? And that's a fact. 1 in 5 women, 1 in 13 men report having been sexually abused between the ages of 0 to 17 years. 120 million girls and young women under the age of 20 have suffered some form of forced sexual contact. These are real issues. It happens in the home, in the families. So that's where we have to address these issues. Child maltreatment is often hidden. Only a fraction of child victims ever get support. I'll speak a little bit on services in Trinidad towards the end. A child who's abused is likely to abuse as an adult. So again, the cycle of violence. So children who are abused become adults who are abusers, and the cycle continues. So how do you stop that cycle of abuse that happens? Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago has been set up. They are doing good work, but again, the volume of referrals they get is overwhelming that service provider. And I know from being in the field that the services we have is not enough for the volume of the problem that we have. It says there, this is from May 2023, and from Trinidad Guardian, right? So it says 4,000 to 5,000 reports of abuse annually. That's about, I think, 12 or 13 every day. Okay, so it is quite a significant issue. I just put some names here: Sean Luke, Amy Anna Montudo, right? 15-year-old Alia Candice Alexander, who was physically beaten and she died, right? Andrea Barrett, not a child, but again, these are names that we know from the media. And there's many, many more on the list. So it's a real issue that we faced. Okay, so I'm going to reference a bit of the many, many stories that we know to illustrate a little bit. Everybody knows the story of Putana. She suckled Lord Krishna to try to kill him. Okay? So the story is really interesting. Putana takes on a disguise. She charms her way into the home of Nanda Baba and Yashoda. She beguiles everyone. She gets into the room where Krishna is sleeping. She succeeds in putting Krishna to her breast, to suckle Krishna, to poison and kill Krishna. So how did she achieve that? She had to have a lot of skill, charm. She had to have planned her approach. This is what happened. This is the abuser in the home, who is a person of trust, a person who charms the family, knows the family, has trust with the child, and then takes advantage of that trust and abuses the child, right? So that's this from our stories, right? Kamsa ordered the killing of the young babies. Kamsa sent all the asuras to kill Krishna. He's a tyrant. Absolute power corrupts. When you have absolute power, you feel you can do anything, right? Krishna was Kamsa, right? He ordered the killing of children, violence against children. The story of Prahalad at the time of Holi, everybody knows the story. Prahalad was a worshipper of Lord Vishnu. Hiranyakashipu felt people should worship him. There's a difference in ideology between Prahalad and his father. And Hiranyakashipu took many, many, many physical, violent approaches to kill this child. He tried to burn him in fire and all these kinds of things. Again, another tyrant who represents the person with power and control who takes advantage. Krishna, let me just talk a little about children and behavior. He's a naughty child prototype, toddler behavior. Children having tantrum, and there's a picture of Yashoda Maya tying Krishna to this cylinder, right? Now, if you see a neighbor tying up the child to a post, well, you can report them to Children Authority, right? Now, we know the stories, we enjoy the stories, but is Yashoda's approach to tie up Krishna to this container, is it appropriate? Is that the right approach? Krishna was very naughty, right? He said do plenty of wrong things and gave mother real trouble. But tying him up on the post, was that appropriate? You could think about it, right? Toddler behavior and managing toddlers and tantrums. Some young parents don't know how to manage the young child who has toddler behavior and tantrums. Somebody, again, they put licks on the child. It's a natural phase the child goes through, and knowing how to manage young children and tantrums is a skill parents must have. You have to have patience. When they have tantrums, you actually have to be neutral to it, wait it out, talk to them after, things like that. So there are approaches to managing toddler behavior that many young parents don't know, right? And again, in Trinidad, everybody say, well, yeah, beat the child, put licks on the child, or, smack the child, and that's the solution. Dhruv. Again, famous story. What was the situation with Dhruv? His father had 2 wives, right? He had preference for one queen, the other queen he had less preference for. Dhruv sought love and affection from his father. His stepmother didn't want that. So Dhruv was spurned by his father. He wanted love and affection. He wanted to sit on his father's lap. Father rejected him because of the perspective of the other wife. What happened to Dhruv? He was sad, depressed. He went and spoke to his mother, And this young child, who was probably, I don't know how old, maybe 7, 8, 9, he goes off to the forest by himself. Now think about it. We're just looking at it from a human perspective. A young child going off into the forest by himself, I mean, how safe is that, right? Of course, we know his story. Narad Muni came and spoke to him and gave him advice, and he was a great devotee of the Lord and all that. But how many children experience this type of rejection in the home from love from parents? How many men have other women or other families and all these kind of things, and not taking care of their family, and they have an outside woman, outside child, all these kinds of things? So real issues in the family. When there's divorce, or the father not around, how does it affect the young male child growing up with no father figure and all these things? Of course, the rare child will be spiritual and evolve, but let's be real, this is the world we have. These are human issues. Surdas, a famous devotee of Lord Krishna from the 15th century, he was visually impaired. Completely neglected by his family, thought to be useless, of no value. Even a band of wandering mendicants, he joined them. When they realized he was blind, thought he was a burden on them. He was a great devotee of the Lord, but he was visually impaired, and there was no support within the community and the society to help Surdas. The situation hasn't changed over thousands of years. We're still facing the same issues. Jada Bharata. A famous story also. Jada means dumb, stupid. Jada Bharata. Some of you all might know the story. I'll recap it very briefly. So Bharata, India is named after this king, Bharata. And Bharata was a great king and a great sevak of the community and all that. In his late life, he took retirement and to do meditation in the forest. But he became attached to a deer, a little young deer. He became attached in the forest. And when he was dying, he was thinking of this deer. So in his next life, he became a deer. In that life as a deer, he remembered his past life and all his teachings and all these things. So when he left the deer's body, in his next life, he was born in this Brahmin family. And this is the life of Jada Bharata. So in this birth now, he remembered all his spiritual teachings, and he wanted to focus on spirituality only. So he didn't talk. He didn't want to be with people much. He wanted to be more by himself. So the whole family thought he was just dumb, stupid. He couldn't talk. He was no use. They used to exploit him, make him do all the menial work, all kind of things. They really exploit this child and abuse this child. He didn't bother with all that because his focus was only spiritual. Now, when I read the story of Jada Bharat, Now, I work with autistic children. That is one of my main areas, children with autism. Children with autism, sometimes they might have language problems. They tend to be more by themselves. They like to be on their own, okay? Some could have behavioral problems, obsessive behaviors. Now, Jalabad wasn't autistic, but when I read his story and I think how he presented to the family, he wasn't talking, he didn't want to interact, he wanted to be on his own. You might think he might have well been autistic, right? But he wasn't autistic, he was an evolved soul, right? He was a spiritual soul. But the Jada means stupid, dumb. And that's how the family treated him, as a dumb, stupid, useless fellow who had no use. But he was actually a very evolved person. And like when you look at autistic children, many of them have certain skills that are really good, and then some skills they may be delayed with some skills. But how does the family approach a child with disability, the child with autism, and how do we support these children in the community? Okay, Sita. The most heartbreaking episode in Ramayana is when Lord Ram banishes Sita to the forest. For all different explanations and reasons we know, but Sita, pregnant Sita, is abandoned in the forest. Lakshmana takes and leaves her in the forest. Lakshmana has tears in his eyes when Sri Ram orders this. Of course, everybody has a perspective on it, but Sita was abandoned in the forest as a pregnant woman, right? You take your view on it. Dushyant and Shakuntala, another famous story. Just briefly, I don't know what time I have, but okay, almost finished. Dushyant and Shakuntala, lovely story. But this Shakuntala was the daughter of Vishwamitra and Menaka. Menaka was sent to distract Vishwamitra from his tapas. She succeeded, but she also fell in love with the saint, and they had a child, Shakuntala. When Vishwamitra realized, he lost his spiritual direction, he left. He said, I'm going to pursue my spiritual life. Indra told Menaka, go back to heaven, go back to Swarga. The child was abandoned in the forest. She was abandoned as a baby, left on the wayside. How many times you read in papers of babies abandoned by their mothers in the bush, on the side of the road and all kind of thing, right? She was abandoned. Kanva Rishi found the child and raised the child. As a young girl in the ashram, this king Dushyant was passing. He saw this beautiful girl in the ashram. He went there. Kanva Rishi wasn't there at the time. So they had Gandharva marriage. They fall in love, right? They had a relationship. She became pregnant. He promised to come back for this girl and the child. She waited, months, years passed. She had the child growing. The king didn't come back. In fact, he forgot about this girl. Pregnant girl, probably teenager at the time, have to raise a child, single parent. The father didn't come back. When the rishi sent her back to the palace, when he remembered, he refused to acknowledge that was his wife and child. He refused. Of course, eventually the story have a happy ending. He eventually accepted her, and this child became King Bharat, the famous King Bharat. But she was probably a teenage pregnancy, had the child. Father neglected her, refused to acknowledge that as his child. Okay? So we know the story, but here's it in the scriptures. We sanitize it in the scriptures with nice, lofty philosophical explanation, but it's a real story from a social point of view. Ganga and Shantanu. We know the story. There's the philosophical explanation behind it, but Ganga killed the first 7 of the children. The last one, Bhishma, is the one that survived. Infanticide. Does infanticide happen now? Yes, it does. Duryodhana and Bhima. Duryodhana poisoned Bhima and threw him into the Ganga. They were children at the time. That's violence between children. We've seen it in the schools. Of course, Duryodhana had hate for Bhima, but he poisoned him. He had the intelligence to poison his cousin, live in the same extended family in the palace, throw him in the Ganga, right? Violence between children. Karna, famous Karna, great archer. He was the illegitimate child of Kunti. Kunti put him in a basket, sent him down the river. Found by the charioteer, raised as a charioteer's son. Karna was such an illustrious person. He had all the qualities of the 5 Pandavas. He was like the 5 Pandavas in one person. overshadowed in his whole life by the fact that he was considered a low-caste person. Even though he had all these lofty qualities, he was considered low-caste, discriminated against for his whole life. That was one of the big issues that he faced in his life, despite all his abilities and qualities. Do children face these issues now? Caste discrimination, where you come from the bush, things like that? That's what Karina faced. But he was so skilled, but yet looked down upon. The person who showed him favor was Duryodhana. And what happened? He gave his life commitment to Duryodhana. That's what he did. So even though Duryodhana was on the wrong side, he never forgot his commitment to his friend. You know, tragic story, but... All right, so with those little references, I think I'm probably out of time. Oh, okay. All right, well, let me just wrap up quick. All right, so I won't take much longer. So 4 types of child abuse: physical, sexual, neglect, emotional. I can't go into a lot of detail again, but there's stuff in the laws of Trinidad and Tobago that I should know, like a child is up to 18 years, age of consent is 18 years. There are things in the Sexual Offences Act that are relevant when you look at issues with teenagers. It's mandatory in Trinidad that child abuse must be reported. There's a fine and imprisonment if you don't report child abuse. Just quickly, some of the services in Trinidad, you have Children's Authority. You can report to them anonymously. You can call them. You can make reports. There's a Police Child Protection Unit. And the health system, there are Child Guidance Clinic. There are NGOs like Rape Crisis Center, Childline. There are also services like National Family Services. In education, there are student support services. These services exist, but most of them are overwhelmed with demand, and these services are not adequate for the demand. And at a governmental level, we have to advocate to bolster these services, to improve these services, to be able to make it better for the society. Yes, you can focus on the family, and where family supports can help with these issues, but the governmental services need a lot of bolstering. Right, and I'll just end with this quote from Nelson Mandela. I could just read it there. And just based on Kamlaji's talk, Reverend Tiloxin's talk, and I just had a few points that came into my mind. I'll just mention it very briefly. Grihas Ashram course, where we could teach things like parenting skills and stuff for young people, is good. And a lot of the churches have really counseling before young people become married and things like that. Mapping of services relevant to the communities so that people can access these services. Providing counseling, marriage counseling, therapy through temples. I know many churches offer counseling and marriage counseling and stuff through the churches. I agree, health and family life education should be reintroduced in an important way in schools. Okay, so I think those are some of the little points that came as I was listening to the other speakers. So thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry for going over time.
Thank you very much. While I wait for the technicians to go ahead and move the various gadgets that I am vulnerable to damaging, I would introduce our next presenter. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I had the opportunity to volunteer with some of the excellent persons seated in yellow here at Sewatiti at this very site for the NCIC Nagar, where we had a vaccination drive. And that's when I first interacted with Mr. Kenneth Surat, who I'm not sure if he remembers our interaction, but the interaction reminded me as to how much we as policymakers fail to include those with disabilities in our planning and in our execution. They are the persons who need our services the most in society, and they are the ones who are left out the most as well. Mr. Surat was born on the 23rd of July, 1968, to parents Parvati and Boyi Surat. He attended the St. Thomas RC School at Guayari, and he completed an associate degree in business administration at the College of Science and Applied Arts of Trinidad and Tobago. He has acted as a manager of the Southern Branch of the Blind Welfare Association on several occasions and was then appointed as Welfare Officer 2 and then later the Executive Officer. In 1994, he was awarded the National Youth Award for Special Education, and he was an integral part of the team that would have won a case at the Privy Council for the establishment of the Equal Opportunity Commission. He is honored to be serving the community of persons who are blind as the Executive Officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Blind Welfare Association. Here to give us a perspective on opportunities to enhance the lives of persons with disabilities is Mr. Kenneth Surratt. Of course. I'm on your right. Be taking a left to the podium. And I'll adjust it for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Sorry.
rest my stuff here up here. What?
Yes, you can go.
Senator Timal, President, NCIC. As I remember this guy called Michael Trestrail, he's now Father Trestrail. And he was blind and he's now a Catholic priest. And the church gave him all the support. I remember as someone who is blind, when my dad died, the pundits said I couldn't do the prayers because I'm blind, I would block his way. We need to fix that problem. And we need to fix it now. At the Blind Welfare Association, we have a pundit who is going blind. I don't want to call his name. And he's scared because he says once people get to find out that the superiors, he may not be able to practice being a pundit. We need to fix that. It's serious issues we need to deal with. That is stuff for you to Miss Kamala. She's, we have a lot of blind women who they are getting raped. And when they go to the police don't know what to do. So we need to deal with that. We have Reverend, we need to deal with this issue about, I told my family, the day I die, I want to be checked to bounce. So when you have no money or anything, you have nothing to worry about. You know? So make sure before you die poor. Because sometimes when you have money, it's a problem. When you don't have, is also a problem. So my talk today, we're going to be focusing on 3 issues. It might be difficult for to catch the eye of the moderator. So maybe he might have to tap on my shoulder or something, you know. Just don't tap me. You know, so we're going to deal with this issue called, because the United Nations did a situation analysis, and the big issue is that people don't know about persons with disabilities. They don't know. They just don't know, and they feel they know. And I remember Satguru talking about, you know, this Save the Soil. He said it was harder to plant trees in people's head than to plant it in the ground. You have to convince people. We have to start in people's head. So that level of awareness is very, very, very important. And I go back to my own personal life as a child growing up. I had my mom, my father, my brother, my sister, and I felt love. And as someone who's blind, I never had no problem, because if these 4 people love me, I don't worry about who don't love me out there. And I believe in myself, and I went back to the story about Viv Richards when he was in Antigua. He never ever believed that he could make the West Indies team. But an evening they were playing cards in Antigua, and a news flash came across, they heard it on the radio, Andy Roberts got picked for West Indies team. And he said, if Andy Roberts got picked, I could get picked. The mere fact that Andy Roberts got picked, it lifted his expectation. We as persons who are blind or disabled, we need people to, first of all, we need to lift our expectation. And my family made me believe in myself, and I had high expectation for myself. We as a community, We need to have a high expectation for everything that we do. A lot of people who deal with the disabled, not in a professional way, think that persons with disability is something to take care of. Let us go back to the 3 models of disability. In the early days, we dealt with the charity mode. People believe that someone with a disability, you have to take care of them, you have to feed them, you have to change their clothes. And then we move into the medical mode. We have a lot of doctors who believe disabled people is something to fix, like an old car, it breaks down. So we have to fix it. But today, we're in a different mode now. We are in the rights mode. Persons with disability have the right to everything as anybody else. People might say equal treatment. I believe in equitable treatment. And presently, one of probably best kept secret, the government have special legislation out for comment to treat with persons with disabilities. I think everyone should get a copy of that, read it, and make your own comments about it. So we need to lift that level of expectation. There is another story about language. You know, this morning I heard a lot of ableist language. No offense to the speakers and them, I don't want to, no offense, using ableist language. We had a member of parliament stand up and say the blind leading the blind, they will fall in a ditch. I am telling people, stop using words that belong to the disabled in a derogatory manner or in a bad way. I am blind, I am proud to be blind, and I don't want, you see those people who hijack the word blind are taking it back. Do not use the word blind as a negative. With the topic, when they reach out to me and say challenges and so on, I say, but I don't ever see things as a challenge, I see it as an opportunity. Language is so important. When you change language, it's different. I'll give you a story about Mahatma Gandhi. Some years ago, well, when he was alive for sure, they were talking about, they were having dinner, and somebody said, Gandhi ji, we need to put salt on the pak choy to kill the taste. He said, no, you don't put salt on the pak choy to kill the taste. You put it to enhance the taste. So how we use language plays on our psyche. If you observe, we don't use the N-word again. And same way, I'm telling people, I sent out a document to the all members of parliament of a document that the United Nations developed pertaining to ableist language. We have to stop using ableist language. It is bad for the disabled community. I am not blind challenged. I'm enjoying blindness. And you see, when you get old and the different disability and comes around, and when you get blind, you're big, you say, I should have this long time. There are plenty of things I wish I didn't see. So I am enjoying my blindness. I feel proud to be blind. And I'm almost certain if opportunity comes for me to get back my sight, I might say no, most likely, because I am proud to be blind. So I want to move in now to the infrastructure. Let us say, for instance, there is a gentleman on a wheelchair, and there is a building with a step. Is that person on the wheelchair disabled, or is it the environment making him disabled? Let us know all of a sudden, by the wave of a magic wand, an elevator appears and a ramp. Is that person still disabled? And I'm almost certain, if anybody object could say, that, don't raise your hand, I wouldn't see it, but I'm almost certain that is the environment makes you disabled. Why architects in this country don't tell people, when you are going to build a nice, expensive home when you're young, you and your wife, you know, plenty love in your eyes, nice words in your ears, you build a house with all the fancy trimming and so on, and when you get old, your children have to build a room for you downstairs because you no longer could go upstairs. We need to use universal design so that when we build in property, or build in houses, build in building, we must use that universal design. That universal design, your building will adjust to, as people get older. Simple, look at the pavement. We have people who almost do all kind of fancy design, smart cities. And a simple thing to cut a little ramp in the pavement to accommodate someone on a wheelchair, you wouldn't do it. And it's not only for the disabled, you know. even people with pram will want to use that same cut in the pavement to move up and down. People believe when you do something for the disabled, it's costly. It is not costly. Once you do something for the disabled, everybody benefits from it, every single person. The remote that you have in your hand, that sometimes you're near the TV, when you press the button to turn it on, you can't find the remote, you're in a mess. That was invented for persons who couldn't leave their chairs to go to the television to turn it on. Now all of us is using it. So that is what we call universal design. Let us take, for instance, washing machine, microwave. Why can't we not drive it through technology, where you could use your remote in your hand, you could use a smartphone and all the technology, because through technology, that helps me. If you were to take away all my technology, I cannot function in my office. I am totally disabled. But if you give me back my technology, like what I have here in my hand, my braille display, I could feel what I'm reading here. Also, my phone has text-to-speech. And with my phone, I could access the internet. I could send messages to my assistant on my way to work. And you know why that happened? Mr. Steve Jobs, when he designed his product, he designed it for every single person to use it. It is good business sense to design for everyone. So when you design something for everyone, you make more money. Do you know, maybe I think it is still, Apple is still the most wealthiest company in the world. And you know why? Because Steve Jobs' idea was to design a product so that everyone could use it. So I'm suggesting to everyone who design in cities and parks and villages and houses, design it with universal design so your village could transform as we all get older, as we all lose some form of mobility, sensory, hearing impaired, visually impaired, or some mental illness you may have. Let us use universal design. I want to move into technology here now, pertaining to education. Let us look at women in this country, especially East Indian women. In the early days, they were at home. They were totally illiterate. And if my memory serves me well, Mr. Badi Sagan Maharaj decided to build schools in the community. And women were able to go, girls at that time were able to go to school and look at the transformation and look at the contribution that they are making in this country. At university, they are dominating the education system. And it's all because one man had a dream, one man had a vision, just like Martin Luther King. I have a dream. I'm almost certain Mr. Badi Sagan Maharaj had a dream. And that dream was to make sure that women have an opportunity to go to school. I am saying let us have the same dream for persons with disability. It is good economic sense to ensure that persons with disability produce and hand them disability grant. Do you know that $5 billion goes toward disability grants or different kind of grants in this country? $12 billion of the national budget goes to transfers and subsidies. $17 billion of a national budget goes to transfers and subsidies. Why can't we consider moving in a different direction, getting persons with disability in school, getting them employed, getting them producing, getting them contributing to national development? And when you do that, you transform this economy. You know what's going on right now in the country with foreign exchange? You have TT dollars and you can't buy nothing away. We have a foreign exchange crisis because we are not taking our elderly, we are not taking the disabled and allowing them to be productive. I am telling everyone here, I want to die doing something. I don't want to die doing nothing. No matter what it is, do something. And if it kills you, so be it. But die doing something. We have to end this thing about laziness as a country, and we need to produce. So that's my speech. I hope I didn't. Right. Thank you very much, and do have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much to all of our panelists. Now, we are 10:40, and we were hoping to have an hour of discussion engaging you, the most excellent audience here this morning. But given the importance of the program I do not want to curtail much of that discussion. So I ask your forgiveness if we go a few minutes beyond 11, because I think the engagement is very important. I'm now going to open up the floor to questions and concerns. Someone has already raised their hands. Mr. Sharma has raised his hand. And you have the opportunity. Please make short comment or question, and you can direct it to whoever you wish to on the panel. They will take the questions where they are as well. So, Mr. Sharma, then the gentleman next to him as well.
I think you should ignore this gentleman and give it our next table.
Sorry?
Get in. Firstly, congratulations. This is an excellent effort. To save on the time, because we're running late, can we get all the presentations emailed to us? The answer is yes?
He's asking if it's possible that your presentation can be
Emailed
given.
to participants.
Yeah.
That we will learn.
You all are free to use the microphones in front of you.
Secondly, the presenters who have agreed to email, can we communicate by you through email or WhatsApp and ask if there's clarity for something we may need? Thank you very much.
It's on already.
Okay.
Sitaram, and good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ramnaris Dwarika, and I just want to give a perspective of where I'm coming from. I've had the opportunity to grow up in a very extended family. Aja, Aji, Dada, and my great-grandfather, and one of 14 children. So I could identify with all that was said this morning. In my adult life, I worked in the courthouse. I saw the domestic violence. I also had the opportunity to be Director of Family Services here for a little while, so I saw it from that perspective. And as a social welfare advisor, I understand what Reverend Tilak Singh was saying. I would go to visit a person who applied for pension, and they didn't care about the pension. They would say, just sit and talk with me for a little while. Loneliness, in fact, is a real serious thing. However, I want to highlight something a perspective that I don't think we touched on this morning, that I think is very important for us to look at. One is, and somebody mentioned it, I think Dr. Bahadur Singh, our women, and I think Mr. Surat also referred to it, our women have been going to school now, and they are doing much better than the boys. They're dominating the educational landscape. And it would be a waste of time to, after all this education, to have them go back and just clean house and cook food and
Exactly.
like we used to do in the old days. So they're going out into the world of work. However, when we go out there, if a woman calculates her pregnancy well, she may get to spend about 3 months or a little less with her newborn child. Knowing that a lot of mothers do not even initiate breastfeeding because it will be a problem when they have to go back to work. And these little children are entrusted to caregivers who have no knowledge most of the time in parenting skills. They are dropouts from school who want a job. And we don't have time to go into all the abuse that happens, because some of them give the children brandy to drink, put them to sleep so they could watch their soaps. We have had those things happen. And I'm saying, starting from what our president said, the family, the major responsibility in socializing the young into the norms and culture of a society is done by the mother. There's no problem with that. The mother is responsible, and now the mother is not there. And this child see a parade of face. As soon as he gets attached to one caregiver, they lose the job, or they didn't cook well, or they didn't clean the house, and they get fired. And this child learns not to trust this society anymore. And that is the genesis of what we are seeing today. these children become anonymous. So I don't mean to give a lecture. I know there's a lot who won't, but this is a problem, and there's a solution. I mean, it's easy to identify the problem, but there's a solution. Other places in the world are doing this, where mothers are now allowed to stay home and work. COVID taught us how to do that. There are places where mothers could bring their child, and there's a caregiver appointed by the company or by the organization, where mother and child could come to work together, get time to go breastfeed the child. Mother and child will prosper. And I'm saying we have to start thinking out of the box. These things that can be done. And of course, there's much more I would want to say about this, but I will give way at this point so other speakers can.
Mrs. Tiwari, such a big responsibility is placed on the shoulders of women and mothers in the home. Is there any suggestion you have or any comment to make to what Mr. Dwarka has raised?
I think we can say that
I don't know if is the microphone on. It's working. You just speak.
the ball has already started rolling in that direction, because it has been suggested about the workplace care. I don't know how many companies are doing it, but the thought is there, the intention is there, and we can look forward, I think, to a gradual increase in the number of companies. We have people breastfeeding in public spaces now. You know, there is a thing they said that you cover yourself, you sit on a bench on a park. I don't think it's common here yet, but it is happening. The movement has started.
Any other comments on the panel?
Yes, I would like to make one comment about educated women going home and not using the resources. It's the same thing happening with persons with disabilities. Yes, we have a, look, for instance, the chair went to Hillview College, and there was a blind guy who went to that school. His name is Anil Wade. He has his master's in IT. But no one wants to employ him. And he went to UE like everybody else, and it did well. So we need to, once we have educated people, get them productive so we get to contribute to GDP. And there's another part of where the world with companies using ESGs, that in environment, social responsibility, and governance. How do you manage your company? It's no longer the time there where we focus on, I hire your hands alone. We hire the whole person. And the world is changing. Just recently, Angostura allowed persons to bring their pets to work. I want a day when every parent who has a child with a disability should be able to take the child to work at least for one day. So we have to change how we do business. We have to, everything must change how we, anything. We have to be more people-centered. Thank you very much.
Okay, the gentleman at the back. Oops, the gentleman at the back. Please go ahead. Please identify yourself for the audience that's listening here present as well as those online.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I am Kumar Mahabir, member of the founder and director of the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. And for the past 3 years, we have been doing a Zoom program every Sunday. And this Sunday, we are going to have it on elders, Reverend Tilak Singh. So those of you who are over 80 years, please feel free to give Ms. Shalima Mohammed, who is here, she is the moderator, your contacts. And if you know anybody who wants to be interviewed to tell us their life story, that can also be done. I want to first thank Senator Derup Timal and the NCIC for organizing these very productive and useful and relevant fora and seminars. And I'd like to especially congratulate Kenneth Surat for giving us a very good, excellent presentation. It's an eye-opener. It's an entire paradigm shift, showing us how we should be thinking. Yes.
Hey, I hope you're not provoking me.
No.
All right, I'm just making sure.
You're giving us. And yes, a paradigm shift so that we can think critically and differently.
Yes, that was one.
Now, I'll be very short. So, Senator Timal really hit the nail on the head at the beginning, and when he stated that the Indian family is in crisis. That's so true, because we are, the Indian community in Trinidad and Tobago is in all kind of crisis, politically and otherwise. But yes, family, I'm going to deal with the family situation. We are experiencing zero population growth. Why? Because most Indian couples now are having one child. Most two. When you have a third, it's really trying to get a boy or a girl. And having two children does not increase the population. And when they do have this one child or two children, the children are not getting married. They are educated, they are professionals and so on, but they're not getting married. No offsprings, nobody to give the property, nobody to carry on the name, to carry on the tradition. And as Reverend Tilak Singh mentioned, the other dimension of this crisis is the neglect of the elderly, so that their grandparents and so on live alone. Now, to conclude, we have to look for solutions. We can spend the whole day here talking about the problems, about gender-based violence and domestic violence. And to me, the root problem is illiteracy and alcoholism, which is what Senator Derup, we have to convene another seminar on alcoholism, because it is an Indian problem, mainly. So 2 solutions before I end. One is that a lot of good-looking, educated Indians are single and getting older. And a lot of them have approached me as if I can help, maybe because I run an Indian diaspora program throughout the world, Fiji, people from Fiji, Mauritius, and so on. They asked me to find a mate for them, a dulaha or dulahin. So I'd like to propose to the NCIC that they set up a dating and marriage website. It already exists. Shani.com, it exists in other places, but we need to do that for the Caribbean. Because I visited Belize and Grenada and so on, St. Vincent, they said they have outmarried. If they choose another Indian in the family, it's going to be a relative. So they're looking for people outside of the country. And finally, related to the family, is that we need to set up a Hindu home for the elderly, Hindu home for the aged. The Muslims have, the Christians have, the Hindus do not. So we need to do that now. Pardon me? No, times have changed, sir. Times have changed. People children are migrating, children are working. Sometimes they need daily, as a doctor you should know better.
So these are all things to explore.
Medical care, daily, they need to be taken to the bathroom and so on.
Right.
The children are working, grandchildren are working. So thank you very much, sir.
Are there is there any feedback from our panelists before we move on to the next person? After the next person, who is Mr. Kisoon.
I want to deal with the same home for the elderly. In the States, or someone while listening, people use the word home probably loosely, where you put you in a building and people taking care of you. Why can't we consider, like, there are people with their home and extra rooms? Why can't we have probably a couple old friends who share common ideas, could spend time together in one space? So if you have 4 persons who are old and have 4 homes, sell 3 and 4 live in one. Fine, what I'm saying, let us think differently. When you say home, it mustn't limit to some kind of building, smelling funny and all kind of thing, and people living there. find some creative way to use your home as a home and see the economic value in it and see what best. But the suggestion here is think differently. Think outside of the box. Be innovative. Because first of all, you have to identify the problem. Earlier we spoke about loneliness. And if loneliness is a problem, and have an old person, Arima, and that person lonely, one in Port of Spain, one in San Fernando, one in Guaya, why can't we probably sell 3 homes and live in one and don't be lonely? Probably could give that some consideration. But I just one idea, but we have to think. All I'm suggesting, think outside of the box, be innovative. Not because the Muslim probably have a home, Hindu should have one. Probably could be more innovative and do something different. Let us try new things. New things are exciting.
Yes, Mr. Surat, he does raise a point. Abroad now, they have something known as dementia villages.
Right.
Where it's not about the physical infrastructure, but what about the policy infrastructure? Right. You don't have to build walls. What you have to do is that you build a policy so that the people become adaptable to what are the challenges that are faced by the individual. And that way they can live within society with as little interruption as possible.
I want to add, you make a statement there. In Trinidad, we'll prepare children for school. But in Finland, they prepare the school for the child. I say that in the context, why don't we design villages to accommodate us as we adjust in life? Let us stop preparing ourselves for the world, but how could we design a world for us? By just looking at things differently.
Sure. We take Mr. Kisoon, then he'll be followed by Dr. Bhimal, then he'll be followed, I'm sorry, I don't have your name, but this gentleman in blue, and then Dr. Arvind Singh.
Hi, good morning everyone.
Good morning.
So I just want to ask us to think about, the problem that we're describing here on a more ideological level. Now, we spoke about violence against women. We spoke about the experiences of the elderly. We spoke about the experiences of persons with disabilities. We spoke about children. And I feel fundamentally, we're questioning and negotiating the idea of care work. Now, if we were to look at the experiences of women, children, the elderly, we as a community that is rooted, South Asian, West Asian cultures have always been rooted in something that sociologists call the filial piety, meaning that we give care to our parents, we give care to our children, we give care to our women, we give care, and more so in Hinduism, we have a particular care relationship with the earth, the way in which we do puja, the way in which we build houses, the way in which we plant land. There's a particular way in which we respect and care for these things. And I feel like as we move into the contemporary, we're excusing this idea of care work. Now, masculine spaces have totally eradicated the idea of care work, meaning that we don't value the mothers who cook the sada roti and scrub the toilets and make sure that the children get ironed clothes to go to school, because domestic work and those kinds of labor is the most undervalued work, right? Laborers, etc. We all want to be doctors and lawyers and forget to plant, garden, and all of that, right? So I feel like fundamentally what we're doing here is negotiating this idea of care work. We don't want to do care work for our elderly because we'd rather have a conversation about what is the best and better homes for them. We don't want to do care work for our children. As a result, they're affected by maltreatment, abuse, violence, etc. The idea of doing care work by men is rooted in why women experience domestic violence and sexual assault. That idea to take care of someone else, to value someone else's idea and experience and body and etc. is rooted in the way in which women experience violence. So I feel like fundamentally Hinduism and Indo-Caribbean culture has always had to fight with this idea of caring for people, caring for spaces, and we've always had to hide that. And I feel one of the solutions is sharing that idea with our religious teachings, our home. You know, just to give a story, like my grandmother traveled so much back and forth from Trinidad to the US to see her children. And every time she landed, either in the US or at home in Trinidad, she would bow down and touch the floor. And there's a certain level, when we were building our house in Sawa, my grandparents insisted that we do the puja before we do anything. And now this next generation are afraid to do those simple things, right? And I'm saying that we are always negotiating care work, and we are going to come to a place where no one wants to take care of anyone. So I'm just really saying, Hinduism has a solution, Indo-Caribbean culture has a solution, and I think we need to think about it on the ideological as we think about care work. Thank you.
Yes. Would someone from the panel be interested in responding? Dr. Bahadur Singh, this idea that the next generation is losing the concept of care work as being part of the culture. Do you have anything to say to that?
Actually, a thought popped into my mind on this issue about being innovative, thinking about Mr. Surat and his perspective. In Japan, because there isn't enough of a young population, artificial intelligence now is being utilized in the care homes to take care of the elderly. And that is something which is currently going to evolve, artificial intelligence and robotics and all these things. The Japanese are ahead with it right now for the same reason. So thinking outside the box, as Mr. Surat said, is things we have to do. But yes, I agree with that point. Even in my own personal life, having experienced my grandfather who was ill and all that, and the same thing, loneliness, they want people to talk to. He refused to leave his home, but his medical issues were so difficult. Eventually he went to a care home. Eventually he agreed, That's where he passed away. He had 9 children all working. He had many, many grandchildren, but there's no one to actually do the physical care. And in the extended families, long ago, there were hands to do the physical care. But now, there are no hands to do the physical care. So we have to think about solutions to that. And I think we have to be open-minded to artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And in big countries, what I read also is that persons are investing, just like you have a life insurance, you actually invest in your care when you become elderly, because there's no guarantee that the younger generation may provide that support for you. So people are actually actively investing in their retirement. And they're accepting the fact that you might be a community of elderly persons in a supportive community environment, and you actually invest for that. And that's something you have to think about also.
I want to deal with the two items there pertaining to the people who give care. Sometimes we forget about the person who given the care. We always take from a parent, everything's a take, but nobody pay attention to the person who's giving the care, that person may need a little break. And the second part about children, especially in the East Indian home, you want to do everything for your child. Wash their clothes, do this, do that. And when they get bigger quarreling, they're not doing it. We at the Blind Welfare Association, we insist on parents, let your child who is blind learn to do things. Because if you intend to live forever, it's no problem, you do it for them. But if you believe that one day you're going to die and leave that child behind, make sure that child knows how to take care of himself.
Reverend Tilak Singh.
I wonder if something is not happening to the modern, what I will call the new modern. A long time ago, we were in the modern age. We are experiencing something in this new modern age in which I live. I wonder if we have become so obsessed with a kind of individualism. If we are selfish, we're not going to care. We are not going to care for the other person. This is something that is frightening. We don't think community anymore. Look at a crime situation. I was reading papers recently. Could you imagine a fella, after he committed a crime and killed somebody, the police found 37 empty shells where the crime was committed. One could kill a man, but 37 times that those guns went off. It could be one. Now, something is happening to the human person that is, I don't want to use the word evil, you might think I'm preaching, no man. Something is happening to the human person in this new modern age in which we find ourselves. How are you going to care when you could only, as far as you are concerned, the only person you could care for is yourself, yourself, yourself. This has become a generation that is only focusing on your well-being And this is why we neglect children, we take advantage of people, we take out the rights of others because we are the only people who have rights. Look at the situation in Russia and Ukraine. The sad is that Goliath, the giant and Goliath, we are a kind of people like that. This is a dangerous age in which we live. Very dangerous. There's something, I don't want to say this, moderator. Something is wrong with the human mind. Something has to be wrong with us. In all the sacred books that talk about evil, I'm not talking about that. I just want to be practical. Something is wrong with the human person of 2023. Something is wrong with us. And we're seeing it right here among us. Thank you.
Listening to Mr. Kisoon's question and keeping in mind your presentation, Dr. Bahadur Singh, and the comments by Reverend Tilak Singh, I want to suggest that one thing is that the heroes and mentors that we are providing for the younger generation, when it comes to issue of caring, we need to revisit that. Because you gave your presentation on so many different characters from our cultural background. And one name that stands out to me, especially with this issue of elder abuse and elder care, is Sarwan Kumar. And it may be time that we bring awareness to the next generation. And just like we immortalize Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, maybe our hero should be Sarwan Kumar when it comes to dealing with the issue of ageism and an aging society. Dr. Bimal.
So I'm a medical doctor by profession. I grew up with my nanny from the age of 3 months, and she taught me her mother tongue. My nanny was my babysitter, and I grew up in that tradition, until she died when I was 16. My mom went to work, and I was dropped off at my nanny's house to play and do whatever, and I went to Presbyterian school all the way. When I finished school, I would come home. My mom and dad got married and stayed together, never got divorced. My mommy is still an independent woman. She is the industrial relations officer in the judiciary. And she would make sure still to cook food in the morning for her family, myself, and my dad, and come home to make sure everybody is okay in the evening. My mom could have left my dad anytime. She had her own money, she has her own vehicle, she has everything. But she never did. She stayed to the vow of marriage until he died on August 5th this year. That is, to me, the ideal family. I remember seeing a patient maybe about 3 weeks ago. He had to get a catheter changed. And his wife insisted he should go to the hospital. And I said, but why, ma'am? The man is good, he could go home. She said, no, I can't take care of him. I'd have nobody to take care of him. So I said, we could apply to social welfare and see if we could get a caretaker to come in home. I know the ministry makes that arrangement. But I said, you married the man. It's for better or worse. And your responsibility is to make sure he's comfortable until the day he dies, like my mother did for my father. So I guess my experience is a bit different. Dr. Bahadur Singh mentioned artificial intelligence. There is nothing better than the human touch and communication, which is a big part of human interaction. It's a social determinant of health. We must interact as human beings and feel part of a community. It's public health, eh? If we are to survive and are to pass on the tradition. I'm upset with my brother. He does not bring his son to see his grandmother often. The complaint is I have no children to play with him. But when he home, he playing with no children. I said, he said, Mommy don't hear too well. So I said, that's no excuse. The point is, your responsibility as a father is to bring your son to visit his uncle and his grandmother as much as you can. It is left within the community just like the language. We must propagate it. Yes, the Roman Catholic Church has its institutions. Yes, Islam has its institutions. But Hinduism needs that. It needs that institution to inculcate what is Hinduism and what is, well, your mother is God, your father is God, your grandparents is God. And it seems that we don't know that anymore. I know it still. I still take care of my mom. And she's 71 now. She has no diabetes and hypertension. I feel she'll live as old as Queen Elizabeth, maybe 97.
Okay.
So I have so much time with this lady that I'm proud. The day she goes, I don't know.
Okay.
But I'll do.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing that experience. We are at 11:11. I would not like to cross 11:30. The time of everyone is very precious. So I'll ask everyone, please, as much as possible, if you can make our comments short. I would like the gentleman, I'm sorry, himself is, yes, Mr. Ramnarang Visun. Yes. Then Dr. Arvin, and then, yes. And then this person. And then that person. Okay.
First of all, I want to thank the President for inviting me here today. I got the email a couple of weeks back, and I had decided that I really wasn't going to attend. And I'm glad that he and I met a few days ago, and so I decided to come this morning because I had nothing else to do. Except for sexual abuse, just about everything you people said on the panel I've experienced. I am a Canadian citizen. I've been living there for about 58 years. I've spent 35 years at the leadership of the Hindu community. I'm 81 and a half, doctor. So let's take seniors. If you ever walked into a senior home, as I have done since 1973 in the job I had in Canada, and you would walk into the seniors' home, lovely place, very nice, very comfortable, but everybody sitting in that lobby wants to speak with you. And why? And it's happening in Trinidad now. The child takes the parent in a seniors facility, and every week they would visit them for the first couple of months. And then it gets to once a month. And then it gets to once to every 6 months. And then probably never see them again. That is happening in Trinidad now. Okay? I just wanted to make that comment. When I was 11 years old, Bade Singh and Maharaj came to our village in St. Julian village, where Pandey lives. I born three houses apart from him, and he's my mentor. And he said he was going to build a school. Okay? He asked us to form a Mahasabha organization. But apart from two people in the village, two men in the village who could read and write, okay? My father never saw entered the doors of a school. Every one of them, all the elders, couldn't read and write. So at 11 years old, my father said, well, he could read and write, he's going to become the secretary. It's okay? Mahasabha. 2 years later, Baris comes back, and he says, well, because now election is on, and we have to form a political party. So again, I became secretary of the party in the village. And that's how my life has gone. What I see here is leadership. And over the last couple of months, that has been in my thought, that and I'm going to focus on the Hindu community, I'll keep it short. In the Hindu community, there is no perceived leader. Okay? It used to be Badi Sagan Maharaj, and it used to be, to a certain extent, Sat Maharaj, but no more. Okay? And that is why, if we don't have the leadership, we're going to continue to be fractured. And I also said to the president this morning, I am disappointed because I don't see enough of you people sitting behind me. Okay? This hall should have been 60, 75% people of your age. Okay? And while you guys are going to school, okay, well, you went to school and you went to school. I actually, when I went to Canada, okay, I went to York University as a senior student to get my degree, and I actually did a degree in 3 years at night. Okay? So we have been losing that population. Okay, and one of the other things I experienced is that a lot of professionals in our community do not participate in social work. But when they retire, they want to join. And I've experienced this in Canada, where a couple of people with PhDs from Trinidad who have come to me at the organization I headed and says, look, I want to join your organization, but I want an office. And I will always say to them, join the organization. We have election every year. Put your name on the ballot. If you're elected, that's it. So my point is, I'm come back to the point, leadership is missing. And if we could bring that together, I think we could do all the jobs that you want. I mean, Mrs. Suari, I don't know if she would remember me sitting next to me on a plane, and I'd been to air for 5 hours, telling her how I was disappointed in her organization because I accused her organization of having a party once a year. It'll be in the paper, and we never heard from them again.
Noted. The Dr. Singh, and then Auntie G, Mrs. Madhu Dwarika, then Auntie June, and then this person. And by then, we should be ready to wrap up. So I think that will be enough.
Sit down, everyone. Arvind Singh from the NCIC and the Centre for Indic Studies. I have 3 questions, one for the entire panel, one for Reverend Tilak Singh, and one for Dr. Bahadur Singh. So I'll just say the 3 of them quickly, and then hopefully the panelists can take them. So the first for the entire panel to consider is, how does the present economy and work situation, we've talked about women now going into work, but now it has become a necessity almost for both parents to work. How does this impact the family, and we know sort of how it impacts the family, but what is the solution to this? And this lack of parenting, which has now sort of become necessary. For Reverend Tilak Singh, talking about this situation where people want to die at home. In the Hindu tradition, we have this concept of vanaprastha after grihastha, where you actually go out of that home situation. But I want to go one step further and ask if you have considered how, not just if they want to die at home, but just the concept of dying itself. So have you all considered anything in terms of the Die with Dignity movement and people's right to choose when they want to die? That's something that I know I want to have as well. And for Dr. Bahadur Singh, you made this analogy with Karna and Duryodhana, and I think it was a very apt one, talking about the lack of parenting or the abandoned child, and how Karna basically got adopted by the Kaurava gang, right? And this is what we see in society today, these children without families getting into gangs and becoming very loyal to the gangs to the point where they will not leave the gang even if God comes down and tells them, this is not the thing to do. So have you found in the scripture, so any sort of direction as to what is the solution for that? So those are my
So I'll let the panel answer the questions quickly so that we don't lose them. So I'll start with Ms. Tiwari about the question about economy and work situation in society and the solution with regards to the challenges of the home.
Okay, so on the question of women out working, the solution to me, and I've seen it happening over time, over recent years, that the job of co-parenting is necessary. Our men are not out working and coming home to the wife doing everything. So I have seen in very young, your age, who have kids, who share responsibilities, who pick up, drop off, cook for the evening. And I think that that is one solution in the unsocializing of boys that I spoke about earlier on. Yeah? Yeah.
So I'm not speaking about women in particular going out to work. I mean, there's often a situation where there's no parent, male or female, because both are out to work for very long hours. And this is something that has come about just because of the state of the economy and the necessity for both parents to work. So there's not, so either one is fine. Father or mother could stay home. But we are in a situation now where of necessity, both of them have to work for even longer hours and there is no parent around. So how are we going to compensate for that?
Go back to the extended family where it's working for my family. The kids are home with us this week, their parents are out, and we are filling in and I don't know what else except leaving them with strangers, and we see the fallout from that. Okay?
Dr. Tilak Singh.
I wonder if the time is not now in your personal life, for us to start planning, if God should give us life, that we should start planning for retirement and being senior citizens. I'll tell you what I mean. Not often, but there are few occasions where we have done funerals. I did one recently, and I had no work to do as far as planning the funeral is concerned. This lady had planned every single detail for her funeral. Everything. She even wrote her eulogy. No, this has happened. I am telling, I didn't make this up. We had to select no hymns, no participants, no readers for the scriptures, etc. She planned everything. Now hear this one. The point I am making is, and I'm going to confess this, I don't have a will. Because I did not plan as this lady. I wonder if the time has come, doctor, if this is an individual mindset, that we cannot tell ourselves that there is something called the inevitable. We postpone it, like me. I didn't make a will. One of these days I realized I have to do that. I have to think that I have to leave. I feel I am here forever and forever and for all times. But here is one. We have to tell ourselves, especially those of us who are over 40, I understand it used to be 60 and 70. Now, let me tell you something. The advice is that you have to start considering yourself. The doctors are saying, watch out at 45 and 50. For men, it's 40. Now it's 50. We are going to get old one of these days. And we have to plan for that. We have to think about it. And doctor, if we have this mindset, we are going to prepare for old age. We may not have all the answers if God spare life that we should see 75 and more. But at least we would have been prepared for this thing.
What I'm asking about specifically is not just preparing for old age. You know how now we have, people could go and they could plan their C-section and tell when the child wants to be born. I'm saying now, should we give people the ability to say, this is the time I want to die? So not just delaying the death, but bringing it forward.
You see, what I'm dealing with is, and you touched on this, the old person who wants, I want to stay home, no matter what, I want to die here. But it's dangerous because you are vulnerable to the criminal elements. It's dangerous because you're alone living in your house. You could get a stroke or fall in the bathroom and there's nobody to help you. I wonder if I mustn't plan now that at a certain age and time in my life, I must learn to give up the house that I love and go to what the Canadian, I was talking to my sister in Canada and she did talk about these homes. I have to tell myself, and we have to tell ourselves, it is very possible we have to leave that house that we love to go to a community home, the seniors home you talk about. It might be expensive. The only problem here is only the rich in Trinidad could go there. That's the problem. The poor elderly cannot afford because big business in Trinidad. You can't go to a senior's home.
Dr. Bahadur Singh, quick response to the question on the violence relationship. Sir.
We're talking.
Well, just a quick response. It mightn't cover everything, but just on the idea of abandoned children. So there's the idea of adoption and fostering of children. So in Trinidad, a lot of informal fostering happens. So if a child doesn't have parents, often someone in the family, would take over responsibility to parent that child and raise that child. But you also have children in the system who don't have homes and parents, and there are children there who need adoption, right? The fostering system in Trinidad also needs to evolve better in Trinidad. Trinidad Authority is in charge of fostering and adoption. In bigger countries, the fostering program where you don't actually formally adopt the child, but you could home the child, give love and support and things like that, is much more developed. So I think fostering in Trinidad needs development, and we need to be more open for adoption, right? Like I have 2 girls. I tell my wife I don't mind adopting a child. I want more, but I said I don't mind adopting one, but I still is a discussion in progress because I think as a community, I don't know how. I'll give a little brief story. I met a nurse in the health center. She had 6 children. She adopted 3 children, then she had 3 of her own. She was an 80-year-old nurse making pepper sauce and selling in the health center. But she adopted 3, right? These were 3 children who didn't have home. She adopted them, and then she had 3 of her own. So I think the community needs to be open to the concept of adoption and fostering.
Chair, I want to deal with the euthanasia. I think that might be the better statement because there's a guy in Australia who was over 100 years and he wanted to die. And he said he lived enough and he went to somewhere in Europe, in a country that permitted. So it's something as a country, we need to give some consideration to that. And to deal with abandonment. When I was 8 years and I went to the school for the blind, my mom, I don't know if it's calculated abandonment for I to get an education because I went home 3 times for the year. And as a result of that, we have to end this thing about institutionalized children with disabilities, putting them away from their parents. We need to push for inclusive education so our children could stay at home, go to school at home, and build our schools to accommodate the child, and not the child having to prepare himself for the school. So let us deal with these kind of issues about children staying at home with their parents and cut out this thing called institution.
Noted. I would like to leave that issue of the euthanasia topic probably for another discussion because it's a very weighted issue by itself. Ms. Dwarika.
Thank you very much. I know that we are now fighting against time, and there was so much, though. This morning has covered so many topics. So I am going to select a few words that I heard this morning, give some additional information that I would consider useful. And I would definitely ask the committee to consider each topic for further discussion, each single one as a seminar, because there is just so much available and that need to be addressed. Now, I would venture to say that every single person sitting in this room is a trailblazer. You would not be here unless you were a saver or a trailblazer. So I also want to ask your assistance. I left this country over 40 years ago, I was already in education when I did that. And it occurred to me from then, even those early days, we start our education with A for apple. How common is an apple in the vegetation of this country? But we start there, and then we develop from there to so many things. As a plane was touching down in New York, I saw a picture of the house I always drew in my art classes with the fireplace. Again, another thing, there's so much to address with education. I want to pick up on what Dr. Mahathir said before, literacy. But we tend to think literacy is just reading and writing, perhaps. It has something to do with books. What about extending that thinking? Literacy is the general, all the wisdom that we have brought as a culture, that Hinduism, and I'm not propounding just one word, all the religions teach the value system. But I'm talking about continuing on with this wisdom, but not addressing it at the age we are at, Mr. Tilak Singh, Reverend. We address things at the preschool level. We have to, I left this country to impact, to learn about curriculum development, because that was one of my goals, to start from the very beginning. Now, if we were able, or if we can, I do not know that we have had much success in adapting our curriculum with the holistic development. We are focusing a tremendous amount on grade accomplishment, passing an exam, getting 100 and something. What about the holistic development of the child? Nutrition at the very early age. Whose responsibility? Our parents would teach us as much as we know. I really have so much I want to say today, but I know I cannot hold on to the microphone. There's one thing, though, we talk about the care of the elderly. There are families now, for those who mentioned Canada and America and what is going on there, there are families there that are receiving money to care for their elderly. There is a way of working at it. There are policies now that impact that. So they come into the home and where the elderly is getting a substantial amount of support, and a family member, not an outsider is being hired, a family member, if everything works out paper-wise, they get paid. So that's one concept. I also want to say, and I don't know, maybe some of you know about this or do not know, 10 years ago, a young lady from Debe, right from Debe, which is my neighborhood, started a senior center, not a home, a senior center where adults would come, and that was the first vegetarian meal, a senior center that addressed only vegetarian meals as one of the things. It was the United Hindu Cultural Council that started this, and it started with volunteers only, no funds from the government. You have to prove yourself, etc. I mention this only because I personally witnessed, and Dr. Bimal brought up the topic, the value of the touch, to the human touch. It's so critical. Artificial intelligence is valuable. It will be valuable, but for human growth and flourishing and nurturing, the human touch is also very, very, very valuable. I know I can't say everything now that I would wish to add because other people need to speak and time is going.
We definitely need more time.
Yes. So I look forward. I compliment the team that put this together. I really will look forward to being part of, to serving in whichever way I can, because I have just come back in Debe. We have just established a center, not senior, community center, which will also be addressing the needs of the senior. There's just 1 year old now, but this is my time to give back. I am now settling in Debe after living about 50 years abroad. So we are looking at addressing all of what was mentioned, or many of what was mentioned. All the doctors are welcome to come and join us. And I thank you very much. I thank my brother for letting me know that this was going on today.
Okay,
So,
thank you very
thanks
much.
again, everyone. Bless.
What I will do is that the remaining, Auntie June, you still wanted a question? Okay, this person first, then Auntie, and then if we can make the comment short. Unfortunately, I've already crossed the 11:30. I've failed at my own timeline. So I'll add closing comments, and we can always have discussions after the closing of the program as well.
Thank you. First of all, my name is Ina Maraj. So very briefly, at this same very site, many years ago, I was the president of Gopio then, and we held domestic violence against women at this very same site. My point here, I'm very happy with the invitation, and thanks to those that sat on the chair there. So, two things I have here. And the first line I have, the root at the home level. Very, very important. And I don't know which one of the speakers that I will be speaking to, but the four of you, very good, fantastic. And protecting the child. So I'm going to talk in the present, not in the past, but I'm going to speak about the present. What I am observing with the children. Yes, the children. I am seeing children under 18 years. And this is being fostered by the parents of the home, where they are clothing the children, they put on makeup for these children, and having these little children under 18 years or probably 10 years on the big stages, dancing and whining and singing with those adults. And many of us clap at it. Say, well done. But where are we taking these children? Where are we taking? I don't know if you all saw this, but I think somewhere on the internet, I saw where the opposition leader spoke about 18 years and over. Any one of you saw that? Bring something and whatever. And don't let them be on over 18 years. Now, my final question is this. Having these children, I'm not saying don't perform and don't sing, but you have to know where to put your child and your grandchild. You have to know what stage to put them on. And with whom? It is the now I'm speaking about. So I am saying, please look at this, because this is the future we're looking at. This is the future. So here it is. Once more again, I ask. I have attended many seminars. The last one was with Professor Brinsley Sumaru, and he is gone. That was the last seminar that I came here. What I'm saying, let us look at the children. Let us look at them. Where are we placing them? Where are they going? And to top it off, what kind of character these children will have. All for what? Because they will get money. Is money everything?
Noted.
The answer is no. Your character is first. And let us be serious. Thank you.
Noted. Comment on that side, and then I will allow the closing statements to answer any of the concerns that were raised.
Thank you very much. The name is...
Sorry, it's Auntie. She was the last person scheduled. I really apologize. I know a lot of people want to contribute.
Thank you so much. Huge thank you to the organizers. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm Shalama Mohammed. I'm the co-director of the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. And thank you so much for a thought-provoking session this morning. Thank you to the organizers and to the male-dominated panel. I want to bring this question right back to the lone female on the panel. You raised a very important point, and that is about violence against men. So my question is, who, and anyone on the panel can answer this, because it occurs to me that while Mrs. Tiwari raised the point, the males in your professions or fields of interest would certainly have a response. Who are the perpetrators of violence against men? Are they women? If so, to what extent are they wives, girlfriends, or daughters? And if they are men, how are they related to the wives, girlfriends, and daughters? Thank you.
Okay. I really apologize. I would like the commentators to have the closing statement. And of course, after closing, we will be able to have further discussions one-on-one, hopefully with the panelists. So all of the comments last made, I will ask each of the presenters to be brief in their response as we close up this morning. Starting with Mrs. Tiwari.
Thank you. Shalama, on the topic of violence against men, I did put that at the end because yesterday, in yesterday's paper, Dr. Varma Singh brought up the issue about the increase in violence against men. And I always think that if we're addressing something with women, we have to have the men present because the women cannot be talking and the men not listening or explaining what is happening. And recently, the Hindu Women had a mental health project, and we wanted to do it for girls and women and girls. And then with discussion with our group, I said, let's include the boys. Let them hear, let them explain, let them reflect on what the girls and the women are saying. So I know that this is a topic that needs to go forward. A seminar of this nature that focuses on men, because so many seminars are focused on women, and it's time to move a little over to the men and give them a voice and their thoughts, their feelings, and hopefully, as Senator Tima said, as we go forward, we can include that in our program.
Reverend Tilak Singh. Sorry, go on.
We were talking about old age and where we die at home, whether we die somewhere else. I have come to the conclusion that it is what I teach my children, how I behave in our family setting, that is going to make them do what they can, how they can, the best they can when I pass. I don't want a color to be dressed in. I don't want a plot and laperouse. All those things for me place enormous responsibilities on our children. And as whether I die in a home, I've already told them. I said, I look at your life now with us supporting you. And you can't handle me when I can't talk, when I can't hear, when I can't understand. Put me in a home and come and see me as often as you can. And I think in fairness to our kids and looking at their lifestyle and their responsibilities with their family, we have to not place that burden on our children. Thank you.
Reverend Tilak Singh.
Yeah, sometimes I hear the old song, sorry, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. We are looking for answers to multiple problems. What we're talking about here is not new. Not new at all. I could spend a lot of time talking about the power of the television in the minds of the young people. Another culture. I would say this. I'm not hiding it. Only last night, a friend and I were talking about the power of the television. And I'll say it, one of the television stations had a program by an American woman named Ellen DeGeneres. Now, she is gay. That program was aired on our television station in Trinidad. And our teenagers, young people, were able to see this. When they are so, we have to be conservative. The Hindus against it, Muslims against it. And we stayed quiet, man. And we allowed a television station to let this lady get into the mind of our young people. You talk about indirect and direct brainwashing. Listen, we're not talking about the political directorate and the power that they have. We could do what we want here. They make policy in these different areas that affect the lives of our sons and daughters. They determine education, what should be in the curriculum, what should not be there. Lady talked up just now, my friend from Gopiot, sorry, I don't know if that exists, but he not talking about the whining and so on. When the Carnival Commission decide to have the children's carnival and give them prizes and so on, we in the fathers and mothers didn't plan that. We're talking about the policymakers in this country who make policies like that and encourage our sons and daughters. And I remember when I just started as a teacher, the Ministry of Education said, many years ago when I started as a teacher, in all the schools there must be carnival. You see what I'm talking about, where it came from? Political directorate, the power up there, and they make policy to guide our life and determine what kind of education. You must have carnival in school, and so on and so on. The answer is not blowing in the wind, you know. The answer is in the heart of our people, in your heart and mine. The answer is not in the wind, it's in your heart.
Dr. Bahadur Singh.
All right, so just briefly, I would say keep positive. We often look at life having problems, but we could look at it as situations where we want to find solutions. And as Mr. Surah said, keep doing, keep working, right? So keep positive, keep working. I believe in, if you choose your battles or projects, see it through. So keep positive, keep working. If you focus on something, focus on it, see it through. Can't change all the wrongs in the world, but every little change we make matters. If everyone can make some change, it matters. So this is my final comments.
Mr. Surat.
I would like to say thank you very much for this opportunity. And I want everyone to know the genie is out of the bottle. Don't try to put it in. Try and deal with the genie. We have to deal with the genie. I want you to take away from today's event, especially from persons with disability, focus on what the child with a disability can do and cannot do. The adult, the senior citizen, let us focus on what we could do, not what we cannot do. And as I always tell my wife, in sickness and in health, my wife could see, so she married someone who's blind. So I told her, you have one problem to worry about, your husband getting blind, but just get worried if I get mentally ill, you have some problem. And I also told her she's lucky, she have a BMW. She said, what do you mean by that? I say, blind man worries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I just want to take the opportunity to just indicate that while a lot has been said on policy, there are things that can be taken for yourself at home at this point in time. I received one comment virtually from the program that noted that language is important, and this is in response to Mr. Surat speaking about enabling language. Language is important in the family, just like enabling language. We also have to look at violent language. Kill two birds with one stone by speaking about language. But don't say to kill two birds with one stone. Say feed two birds with one fig. That was a comment that came in. I would like to take the moment to appreciate each and every panelist who has gathered here with their wealth of wisdom, both in terms of research and lived wisdom, as Dr. Tilak Singh put it. We are all better persons leaving this meeting this morning because of the knowledge that you have shared. I would like to thank all of the staff members who were involved, be it technical, be it those who did the most important part, which was the breakfast for us this morning, and all of those who were involved in organizing this. I would like to thank you, the audience, who have gathered here and have been willing and enabling participants in this entire exercise this morning. Without you, it would have been no fruit. And I humbly ask your forgiveness if I have transgressed in any way, especially with the time. I ask your humble forgiveness. In his absence, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Premnath Gupta, who is the chairman of the NCIC Heritage Centre and who would have been a moving force behind this program. There will be other programs throughout the year centered around the continuation of this theme, as well as other important issues, including such like what you raised, in the future to come. So please pay attention. Those opportunities will arise as well. I'd like to thank the President, Mr. Timalji. I'd like to thank those who felt that I was capable of performing this humble duty to each and every one of you. As we close off this morning, I would like each and every one to please stay and have something to eat. There is still food available, so enjoy. And as you exit, you can take the opportunity to visit Sewa Titi. They are currently having their closed drive, and you will see much of the whole area blocked off as they are preparing with this closed drive. So it'll be a good opportunity for you to see what is going on, led by young people. They may not have been present here, but it's an effort by young people. So at least something is continuing that is positive in society, and that will give us hope. I thank each and every one, and I hope you have the rest of your Saturday as a good and productive and safe one. Sitaram, Assalamu alaikum. Good morning into afternoon. Have a good day.